On a small farm, in dense thickets of burdock, the mother duck found a cozy place to build her nest. She waited for the chicks to hatch. One sunny morning, the eggshells crackled and tiny fluffy ducklings were born. There was only one egg left, the largest one that did not want to crack. The duck began to worry that something was wrong with him. She sat down on the egg again and decided to wait a little longer. The duck mom gave all the heat she could. She thought that this chick must be the most beautiful since she has been incubating him for so long. Soon a chick hatched from the last egg, but it did not look like the rest of the ducklings at all. It was much larger, and its feathers were gray. The duck mom was upset to see such an ugly son. But she hoped that someday he would become like his fellows. The rest of the ducklings laughed at him. They considered him disgusting and did not want to play with him. The next morning, the mother duck went with her children to the lake. To her surprise, the ugly duckling swam as well as others. The duck then brought her little ones to the poultry yard to introduce them to society. She told the ducklings about the rules of behavior with local inhabitants. The duck presented its brood to the noblest fat drake, but he attacked the ugly duckling, and she was forced to protect her failed chick. Fat Drake ordered to drive the freak out of the yard. Mother assured that he would grow up and become like other ducklings. Unable to withstand the bullying and humiliation, the ugly duckling left the poultry yard. In search of a safer place, he came across a beautiful lake, on which there was no one. And the duckling decided to stay here to live. Time has passed. Despite his loneliness, the ugly duckling was happy that no one offends him. And then one day, a beautiful white bird with a long neck flew to his lake. The ugly duckling did not know what kind of bird it was, but he looked at it with admiration. He loved her with all his heart. How a duckling would like to be like this lovely white bird. Winter came and it started snowing. The ugly duckling saw white snow for the first time. He was delighted with this sight. But due to the fact that the winter was very snowy, it was very difficult for the duckling to find food. He had to walk around the neighborhood in search of food. He was cold and tired. So the ugly duckling got to the farmer's house. When the peasant saw a thin and unhappy chick, he felt sorry for him. The farmer decided that he would keep the duckling with him until he was fattened and matured. Spring has come. The owner took good care of the chick, and he grew up a lot. The duckling already needed a lot of space, and the farmer decided to release him to the lake. Standing on the shore of the lake, the ugly duckling looked at his reflection in the water. And he could not believe his eyes. He could not recognize himself, and thought that there was someone else behind him. And then the duckling realized that the wonderful bird in the reflection is himself. To celebrate, he thrashed and swam all over the lake from edge to edge. And suddenly he saw the same beautiful white bird with a long neck, which he had seen once before. The ugly duckling decided to swim closer to her. But the beautiful bird was not frightened, but on the contrary she smiled and winked, and together they swam across the lake. The ugly duckling couldn't believe his happiness. Passing by, a fat drake on the shore of the lake said that he had never seen such a beautiful young swan in his life. What was his surprise when he found out that the ugly duckling that he once drove from the poultry yard was a beautiful swan. It turns out that the ugly duckling was a swan from the very beginning. An egg accidentally fell into a duck's nest. And when the beautiful young swan returned home, then everyone in the poultry yard became very ashamed that they had once offended him because of his appearance. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 12 beautiful daughters. They all lived together in a large and beautiful room. The king was very fond of princesses and raised them in severity. When the daughters went to bed, he closed their door with a key. But every morning something strange happened. When the princesses left the room, their shoes were so ruined as if they had been dancing all night long. The king had to buy new shoes for his daughters every day. No one could solve the riddle of the princesses. Once the king promised to marry one of his daughters if someone would solve the mystery of the shoes. In addition, the winner will become the king's heir. But the daredevil has only 3 days and 3 nights for this, otherwise he will be executed. Many young men of the kingdom, as well as foreign princes, came to try their luck. Day and night they guarded the doors of the 12 princesses' bedroom. But none of them could solve this riddle. And so, another young man decided to try his luck. On the way to the palace, he met an old grandmother.
Hello.
She was very hungry and asked for a piece of bread. The young man gave the old woman all his food. Grandmother was very happy because no one had ever been so kind to her. As a token of gratitude, she presented the young man with a magic cloak that made the one who wears it invisible.
Cool.
In addition, the old woman ordered not to drink anything that the princesses would give. The young man thanked her and went to the castle. When the young man arrived, the king greeted him with joy and led him to the princess's room. The young man began to guard their door. Towards evening, the older sister offered him a glass of wine. The boy on the way was very hungry and thirsty. He forgot about the words of the old grandmother and drank from the glass without hesitation. Soon he felt sleepy and fell asleep. The young man slept all night, and when he woke up it was already morning. He realized that the princess had put sleeping pills in his glass. And then the young man remembered the words of the old woman. Towards evening, the youngest sister offered him a glass of wine. But this time he was careful. The young man took the glass and thanked the princess.
Okay.
When she left, he poured the wine into a vase nearby. When night fell, the young man put on his magic cloak and immediately became invisible. He quietly walked into the princess room and saw that all the princesses were wearing their best ball gowns. Then they went to the wall and began to listen if the young man was sleeping. The young man played along with them and began to snore softly. When the girls were convinced that he was asleep, the older sister moved her bed. At the same place, a secret entrance opened, and the princesses began to descend into it. The young man followed them. When the steps ended, they found themselves in an amazing forest. The leaves on the trees were pure gold. The young man took one twig with him and continued to follow the princesses. After a long journey, they stopped by the lake. There the girls were already waiting for 12 handsome princes in their boats. When the princesses boarded their boats, the invisible youth also jumped into one of them. The princes transported them across the river, and they ended up at a huge, beautiful castle. Beautiful music sounded from it. Entering the castle, the princesses began to dance. They danced relentlessly all night long. Of course, this made their shoes unusable. In the morning, the princesses sailed on boats back to the side of the house. They walked through the woods again, and up the long stairs to their room. The young man was happy that he had solved the riddle of the shoes of the 12 princesses. Soon the king appeared to the young man. The young man told him everything he saw.
No.
The king at first did not believe him, but he showed a golden twig from a magic tree. The king realized that the young man was telling the truth and kept his promise. He allowed the young man to marry any of the 12 princesses. The young man chose the youngest sister because they fell in love at first sight. After some time, the young man and the young princess got married. And they lived happily ever after.